He didn't even hear his name the first time. The office was loud, phones ringing, keyboards tapping, the low hum of ambition filling every corner, but when it came again, louder, sharper, it cut straight through him. Daniel Harper. He looked up slowly, his tired eyes meeting the glass walls of the executive office where she stood waiting, his new boss, the woman who had just fired him and the woman who looked exactly like his wife who had died 5 years ago. For a moment the world didn't move, not a sound, not a breath, just the pounding of his heart crashing against his ribs as if trying to escape, because it wasn't just resemblance, it was her eyes, the same soft brown that used to watch him fall asleep on their old couch. It was the way she tilted her head slightly when she was thinking, even the faint scar near her eyebrow, the one his wife had gotten in a childhood fall. Impossible, his wife Emily was gone, he had buried her himself. He remembered the cold rain, the smell of wet soil, the way his hands shook as he held their 2-year-old daughter Lily close while the coffin disappeared beneath the ground. 5 years of grief didn't vanish in a second, but in that moment, standing there with a termination letter in his hand, everything cracked open again. "You can go now, Mr. Harper." Her voice was calm, professional, distant. It wasn't her voice, or maybe it was. Daniel blinked, forcing himself back into reality, his coworkers watching quietly, pretending not to notice the man who had just lost his job, single dad behind on rent, working overtime just to keep his daughter in school, and now nothing. He walked toward her office slowly, each step heavier than the last. "There must be some mistake," he said, his voice low, strained. "I have been meeting all my targets." She didn't sit, she remained standing, strong, composed, like someone who had built walls too high to climb. "This isn't about targets," she said. "Your department is being restructured. Your position is no longer needed." Her eyes met his, and for a second something flickered, something human, something familiar. Daniel felt his breath catch. "Do I know you?" he asked, before he could stop himself. Her expression hardened immediately. No, the answer came too fast, too sharp, like she had rehearsed it. But Daniel knew, not with logic, not with reason, but with something deeper, something that refused to be silenced. "You look like someone I lost," he whispered. She looked away. "Please collect your belongings. Security will escort you out." And just like that, she turned her back on him. The conversation was over, or at least she wanted it to be. Daniel stood there for a moment longer, hoping she would turn around, hoping she would say his name the way Emily used to, soft and warm like home, but she didn't. So he left. The walk back to his small apartment felt longer than ever, every step filled with questions that refused to settle, every memory rising like waves crashing into his mind. Emily laughing in the kitchen, flour on her face, Emily singing softly to Lily at night, Emily promising she would always be there. And then the accident, the phone call, the hospital, the silence. He had spent years trying to rebuild himself piece by piece for Lily, for her future, because she deserved more than a broken father. But now everything was falling apart again. When he opened the door, Lily ran to him, her small arms wrapping around his waist. "Daddy, you are home early." Her voice innocent, bright, untouched by the weight of the world. He forced a smile, kneeling down and hugging her tight, maybe too tight. "Yeah, kiddo, just finished work early." She pulled back, studying his face with the quiet wisdom children sometimes carry. "Are you sad?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Just tired." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat alone, staring at an old photo, Emily holding newborn Lily, her eyes glowing with love. He traced the image gently. "How is this possible?" he whispered. The next morning he couldn't let it go. Something inside him refused to accept coincidence, so he went back, not as an employee but as a man searching for truth. He waited outside the building for hours, watching people come and go, until finally she appeared, stepping out into the sunlight. For a second his heart stopped again. She looked even more like Emily outside the sterile office, lighting alive, real. He stepped forward. "Wait." She froze slowly. She turned, her expression guarded. "You shouldn't be here. I just need to talk." "There is nothing to talk about, please." His voice cracked, and that was enough to make her hesitate. "Just 5 minutes." She looked around, then sighed quietly. 5 minutes. They sat at a small cafe nearby, the tension between them thick, unspoken. Daniel studied her every movement, every gesture. "You really don't remember me?" he asked, her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "I told you I don't know you. 5 years ago my wife died in a car accident." He said her name was Emily. Something changed. It was subtle but undeniable. Her breathing shifted, her eyes flickered. He leaned forward. "You look exactly like her." She shook her head quickly. "People look alike. It happens not like this." Silence fell between them, heavy, Suffocating. Then he said something that broke it open. You used to hate coffee with sugar. Her hand trembled slightly. You said it ruined the taste. She stood up abruptly. This is inappropriate. I have a meeting. But Daniel stood too, his voice desperate. You used to hum when you cooked. You always forgot where you left your keys. You called our daughter Little Star. She froze. The world seemed to stop around them. Slowly she turned back. Our daughter, she repeated. Daniel's heart pounded. Yes, Lily, she is 7 now. The name hit her like something physical. She staggered slightly, grabbing the edge of the table. Her voice broke. I don't have a daughter. But her eyes said something else. Fear, confusion, something buried deep trying to surface. What is your name? Daniel asked softly. She hesitated, then said Claire, but it didn't sound certain, like it wasn't fully hers. Days passed, but neither of them could forget. Daniel kept searching, digging into records, news reports, anything that might explain the impossible. And Claire, she started having dreams, fragments of a life she didn't recognize. A small child laughing, a man holding her hand, a home filled with warmth. But every time she tried to remember more, it slipped away like smoke. One evening she found herself standing outside Daniel's apartment without knowing how she got there. Her heart raced. This is crazy, she whispered, but something pulled her forward. She knocked. When Daniel opened the door, shock filled his face. Claire, before he could say anything, a small voice came from behind him. Daddy, who is it? Lily stepped into view and everything changed. Claire's breath caught, her knees nearly giving out, because the moment she saw the child, something inside her shattered. A flood of emotion crashed through her, overwhelming, unstoppable. Lily stared at her curiously. You look like my mommy, she said innocently. Tears filled Claire's eyes. Without warning, she couldn't speak. Daniel watched it all, hope and fear battling inside him. Lily stepped closer. Are you okay? Claire dropped to her knees, trembling. I don't know why, but she reached out hesitantly. Lily didn't pull away. Instead, she placed her small hand in Claire's, and in that touch something unlocked. Memories rushed back, not all at once, but enough to break her. Daniel, she whispered his name, not as a question but as something known. His breath hitched. Emily, she looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't remember everything. Booth, her voice shook. I remember you. The truth came slowly, painfully. After the accident, Emily hadn't died, she had been taken unconscious, her identity lost in the chaos. A rare case of amnesia. No records, no family found. She was given a new name, a new life. Claire. And over time the past buried itself deep enough to feel gone. Until now. The reunion wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy. There were gaps, memories missing, years lost, pain on both sides. But there was also something stronger, love that had survived even death, even time, even forgetting. Daniel didn't get his job back immediately. Life didn't magically fix itself, but something far more important returned: hope. A family rebuilt, not from perfection but from resilience, from the choice to stay, to fight, to believe. And one night as they sat together, Lily between them laughing, Daniel looked at Emily and realized something. Sometimes life breaks you in ways you can't understand. Sometimes it takes everything from you, but if you keep going, if you refuse to give up, life has a strange way of giving something back. Not the same, but maybe, just maybe, something even stronger. But healing didn't come like a miracle, it came slowly, unevenly, like footsteps in the dark. The first few weeks were the hardest. Emily would sit in the same room with Daniel and Lily, yet feel like a visitor in her own life. She remembered pieces now, flashes of laughter, the smell of their old home, the warmth of Daniel's hand in hers, but the full story was still broken, scattered across time. Some mornings she would wake up and forget again, not completely but enough to feel lost, and every time it happened, Daniel's heart would sink, not because he doubted her but because he feared losing her all over again. Lily didn't understand everything, she only knew that the woman who looked like her mommy was now staying with them. At first she was shy, watching Emily from a distance, studying her like a puzzle she wanted to solve. But children feel truth in ways adults forget, and slowly Lily started moving closer, sitting beside Emily while drawing, holding her hand while watching cartoons, falling asleep with her head resting gently against her arm. Each small moment stitched something back together for all of them, but not everything was healing outside their small, fragile world. Reality was still harsh. Daniel was still unemployed, bills kept coming, savings were almost gone, and now there was another responsibility. Because Emily had no official identity linked to her past life legally, she was still Claire, a woman without history, without proof, without a place in the system, and that made everything harder. One evening Daniel sat At the kitchen table, papers spread everywhere, frustration written all over his face. There has to be a way, he muttered. Emily watched him quietly. You are already doing too much, she said softly. He looked up immediately. No, his voice was firm but gentle. You are my wife, you are Lily's mother. We are not losing that again to paperwork or mistakes. She swallowed hard. The word wife still felt both familiar and distant, like a song she used to know but couldn't fully sing anymore. But she wanted to remember, she wanted to belong. So they started the process: hospitals, records, legal claims, DNA tests, each step long, exhausting, filled with questions and doubt. There were moments when officials looked at them like they were telling an impossible story, because to the world Emily Harper was dead, and dead people don't come back. But truth doesn't disappear just because it sounds unbelievable, and Daniel refused to give up. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Money got tighter. There were nights when Daniel skipped meals just to make sure Lily and Emily had enough, nights when he sat alone wondering if he was strong enough to hold everything together, and nights when Emily watched him silently, her heart breaking in ways she couldn't fully explain, because even without all her memories she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she loved him deeply, completely. One night she found him sitting in the dark living room, his head in his hands. You should have left me in the past, he whispered without looking up. Emily froze. What? His voice cracked. Maybe it would have been easier if you stayed, a memory perfect, untouched. Now everything is just. He struggled to find the word, complicated. She walked toward him slowly, her steps quiet but steady. Life was never simple with us, she said softly. That much I remember. He let out a small broken laugh. You used to say that all the time. She sat beside him. Maybe because it's true. He looked at her finally, his eyes filled with exhaustion and something deeper, fear. I don't know if I can do this again. Lose you, find you, fight the world just to keep you. Emily reached for his hand. Then don't do it alone. That moment changed something, because for the first time since her return it didn't feel like Daniel was carrying everything by himself. It felt like a partnership again, even if it was still fragile, even if it was still rebuilding. The next turning point came unexpectedly. Emily decided to return to the company, not as his boss but as someone searching for answers, because something about that place still pulled at her, something unfinished. When she walked into the building again, employees whispered quietly, recognizing her but unsure how to react. The woman who had fired Daniel, the woman who now looked different, softer, more human. She walked straight into the executive office, the same room where everything had begun, and this time she didn't feel like a stranger. She started reviewing old files, records from around the time she had first joined the company as Claire, and what she found shocked her. There were gaps, missing documents, inconsistent timelines. It was as if parts of her history had been edited, removed. Her heart started racing, because this wasn't just amnesia, this felt like something else, something intentional. She dug deeper, late nights, hidden archives, emails buried under layers of corporate silence, and then she found it, an internal report linked to a private medical facility, the same facility where she had been treated after the accident. But the details didn't match the official story. There were mentions of experimental memory therapy, identity reassignment protocols, cases labeled as sensitive. Emily's hands trembled as she read, because her name wasn't there but Claire's was, and under it a note: subject shows no recollection of prior identity integration successful. She felt the ground shift beneath her. This wasn't an accident. Someone had chosen to erase her past to give her a new life. But why? That night she showed everything to Daniel. He read through the documents, his face growing darker with every line. This is not just a mistake, he said quietly. This is something bigger. Emily sat across from him, her heart pounding. Do you think someone did this to me on purpose? Daniel looked up. I don't know, but I am going to find out, because no one gets to decide who you are. No one gets to take a life and rewrite it like it means nothing. What followed was a battle neither of them expected: legal threats, corporate pressure, people trying to silence them, because the truth they were uncovering wasn't just about Emily, it was about a system willing to erase identities for reasons no one wanted exposed. But Daniel and Emily had already lost too much to back down. Now they kept going, for their past, for their future, for Lily. And slowly, piece by piece, the truth came into the light. The facility had been part of a controversial program testing memory recovery and suppression techniques. Emily had been one of its subjects, not by choice but by circumstance, a patient without identity, a perfect opportunity. But what they didn't expect was that love, real Love would survive even that. In the end the truth came out publicly. The company was forced to face the consequences. The program was shut down and she got her name back legally, officially, undeniably. Emily Harper, a mother, a wife, a survivor. Daniel didn't just get justice, he got his family back fully this time, and more than that, he got a new beginning, because one morning he received a Cala job offer, not out of pity but out of respect for his resilience, for his integrity, for the way he never gave up. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became real, stronger than before, built not on assumptions but on truth. And one evening, as the three of them sat together watching the sunset, Lily laughing between them, Emily resting her head on Daniel's shoulder, he realized something deeper than anything he had felt before. Love is not just about memory, it's not just about time, it's about choice. The choice to stay, the choice to fight, the choice to believe even when everything tells you to let go. And as he held them close, he knew some stories don't end when they break, they begin again, stronger, deeper, unbreakable. The world moved on, but for them time had a different rhythm, not measured in days or months but in moments of remembering, moments of choosing each other again, even after everything, even after the truth had come out and Emily had her name back. Life didn't suddenly become simple, because healing is not a straight path, it circles back, it tests you, it asks questions you are not always ready to answer. For Emily, the hardest part wasn't what she had lost, it was what she still couldn't fully recover. There were years of Lily's life she had never lived, first words, first steps, first day of school, memories that belonged to Daniel alone. And sometimes late at night when the house was quiet, she would sit in Lily's room watching her sleep, tears falling silently, grieving moments she never got to be part of. Daniel noticed, he always noticed. You are here now, he would say gently, standing beside her. She nodded, but her voice carried a quiet ache. But I wasn't there. He didn't try to argue, because pain like that doesn't disappear with logic. Instead, he took her hand and whispered, then we make new memories, better ones together. And that became their way forward, not trying to replace the past but building something new on top of it, stronger because of what they had survived. Lily grew closer to Emily every day, not because she was told to but because her heart recognized something real. One afternoon while they were drawing together, Lily looked up and asked something that made both adults freeze. Mommy, did you forget me? Emily's breath caught. She looked at Daniel, unsure, but he gave her a small nod. Honest, always honest. Emily turned back to Lily, her voice soft but steady. For a while, yes, I forgot a lot of things, but not because I wanted to. Lily's small face tightened. Did you forget you loved me? Emily pulled her close, immediately holding her as if trying to make up for years in a single moment. Never, even when I didn't remember. I think my heart still knew. Lily hugged her tighter. Good, because I didn't forget you. That simple sentence broke something open inside Emily and healed something at the same time, because love didn't need perfect memory, it just needed truth. As life slowly settled into a new normal, another unexpected challenge appeared. Fame, not the kind anyone dreams of, but the kind that comes when your story spreads. Interviews, news stories, people calling them a miracle family. At first Daniel tried to ignore it, they had been through enough, they didn't need attention. But Emily saw it differently. If what happened to me can help someone else, she said quietly, then maybe it means something. So they spoke carefully, honestly, not about drama but about resilience, about how easily a life can be taken apart and how hard but possible it is to rebuild. People listened because their story wasn't perfect, it was real, messy, painful. Hopeful letters started arriving from strangers who had lost loved ones, from people fighting their own battles, from families trying to hold on. And one evening, as Daniel read through them, he realized something: their pain had turned into purpose, not something they chose but something they could use. And for the first time since everything began, he felt a different kind of peace, not the absence of struggle but the presence of meaning. Months later, Daniel found himself back at the same office building where his world had once fallen apart, but this time it was different. He wasn't walking in as a desperate employee or a broken man, he walked in as someone who had survived, someone who had rebuilt, someone who knew what truly mattered. The company had changed leadership, new values, new direction, and this time when they offered him a position, it wasn't just a job, it was trust, respect, a fresh start. As he stepped into his new office, he paused for a moment, looking around, remembering, then letting it go, because he wasn't that man anymore. He was stronger now, not because life had been kind but because it hadn't. That evening he came home to find Emily and Lily in the kitchen, laughing, flour everywhere, just like the old days he barely remembered but somehow felt. He leaned against the doorway watching them quietly, and Emily turned. Their eyes met, no confusion, no distance, just understanding. "You are staring," she said with a small smile. He shook his head, stepping closer, "Just making sure this is real." She walked toward him, placing her hand against his chest, right over his heart. As Lily ran between them, grabbing both their hands. "Come help us." Daniel laughed. "Yes, boss." Emily raised an eyebrow playfully. "Careful, I might fire you." Again he smiled softly. "Not this time, because this time we both know who we are." That night, as they sat together, tired but happy, Daniel looked at his family and understood something that no success, no money, no career could ever teach him. Life will break you, sometimes without warning, sometimes without reason. It will take things you love, it will test everything you believe, but it also gives you a choice to close your heart or to fight for it, to walk away or to rebuild, to lose yourself in the pain or to find something deeper within it. And as he held Emily's hand and watched Lily fall asleep beside them, he knew they had chosen not the easy path but the real one, the one where love isn't just a feeling, it's a decision, a commitment, a promise you keep even when everything falls apart. And maybe that is what makes it unbreakable, not that it never shatters but that it refuses to stay broken. And in the quiet of that night, surrounded by the people he once lost and somehow found again, Daniel finally felt something he hadn't felt in years, not just happiness but home.